Hello, and welcome to the Sisters of the Shire podcast, where we'll talk about J.R.R. Tolkien's incredible world of Middle-earth. Today, we're going to be covering the section at the end of the official, air quotes, official Silmarillion, which is called the Akallabeth. I think I'm pronouncing that right. If not, I apologize. So, if you don't want any spoilers, please go back to the very first episode and start there, because it'll make things a lot easier to understand, because this book kind of gets confusing. So if you're starting in the middle or at the end where we are right now, you might not understand what's going on. So please go back to the beginning. It'll be better that way. We are here to be your guides.
Because I have read the Silmarillion before, but Abi here is learning about it for the first time. So it is our quest to make it fun and easy to understand for every level of Tolkien enthusiast as we make our way through the world of the great J.R.R. Tolkien.
Woo! Let's go!
Woo! Let's go! So I recently shared this post on our Instagram, but I just wanted to give a major shout out to two Reddit users who absolutely made my day. One of them was, I'm going to just spell it out, NA_cohomologist. No idea what that is. They just had some very nice comments to say, which I appreciated. And they even had a pronunciation suggestion for the word that we're having trouble with. They said, if you want to sound très fancy, the E in Akallabeth sounds like a Canadian A. So Akallabeth. 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 Yes. Something like that. So thank you for that. I very appreciated your nice comments and feedback.
We're just butchering Elvish and Canadian at this point. I'm so sorry.
And the English language, let's just face it. And then user unnecessary_eagle made an amazing cartoon of my childish comments about Tolkien's use of the word thongs in reference to the Balrog's whips. It was just absolutely perfection. Everything I imagined and more. So thank you for making my childhood imaginings come to life. Unnecessary Eagle, that made my day. He literally sent me a message like, I couldn't stop thinking about it. This is your fault. Glad to be of service.
Yeah.
So obviously it is summer, and for us, at least for me, Lizzie is actually in the room with me today. So if you hear random coloring or marker clicking, dropping, putting down, coloring, maybe
I hear coloring. Where's that coloring come from?
That's what the sound is. So for those of you without children that aren't being like, oh yeah, that's totally understandable. This is my life. Okay. Just be glad that she's not screaming or yelling or asking questions.
It's summer break. We have our kids with us. We usually record when they're at school. I've got one napping upstairs, and I have two in the other room watching a Disney movie. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. Work with us here.
We appreciate
and then
your
we're both recovering or in the middle of illnesses still. So
I was seriously trying to figure out, like, I was almost done with my cold. I had almost put the cough syrup back in the cupboard. And then I'm like, wait a minute. Why is it hurting to swallow? No!
You should make sure you don't have strep. That's been going around.
Oh, goody. And I had a serious thought about, I know we had this discussion before, but can sicknesses be given through the airwaves? Did your, travel through like Ralph Breaks the Internet? And
yeah,
I don't know how we managed to do that. Someone look into the science, please. I feel like it's possible.
I have such sickness anxiety that when you tell me you're sick, I'm like, oh, don't get me sick. And I'm like, you were literally talking to me through a computer. But I guess it happened because I got sick right after you.
Every time.
And then you got sick right after me. Who knows? Who knows?
And it sounds like you're in the squeaky chair again. Things are just really working out today.
Hey, give some love to the squeaky chair, okay? It's got great lower back support.
All right.
It's got great lower back support. It's comfortable.
Listeners, vote in. What is the name of the squeaky chair? Send your messages to our Instagram at Sisters of the Shire Podcast. Best name will get a shout out. And a picture,
I've got another squeaky chair, but it's in the other room. It's the squeakle.
It's the squeaky chair. That's awesome.
So, What are we going to learn about today?
Yeah, how much do you remember of last week?
Ooh,
we kind of had a history
it's more
of
about the men
review
this time, right?
Yeah.
It's more about the sad. What were the sad nicknames they gave the men? Like,
oh gosh, like
the
second child, the second born, the ill-fated ones. Like they had so many bad nicknames. It was so sad. Oh, and it gets even sadder today, just so you know.
uglies.
The uglies, basically. I mean, they just, I don't know what.
The mutants.
Why did you have to hate them so much? Okay, either did Tolkien just love elves so much that he's like, I guess I'll just put men in here, but they weren't my favorite. Or was Tolkien like, in life, I felt like this, so this is how I feel like God made us.
I think him living in a time of life, he saw war and he saw starvation, where he's like, men are doing all these terrible things to each other. I don't like men anymore. I'm going to make up a race that are beautiful,
pretty,
and make pretty things, and they don't, you know.
But then he gives them flaws too, with Fëanor.
Yeah. And they went to war against each other as well, so
yeah.
Whatever.
Well, they just started off on a bad foot because they literally woke up on the opposite side of the mountains from everyone with no one there to explain everything except some of Morgoth's bad guys who just immediately made their lives miserable.
It's like in Charlie Brown. I got a chocolate bar. I got a pack of jelly beans. I got a rock.
Yes.
There's I got a rock.
Yes.
For everything that happens to them.
Yes. So there were some groups of men that did manage to escape that lifestyle, though, and they came over the mountains into Beleriand in the hopes of a life away from Morgoth's dark rule. And these groups of men would become friends with the elves, and they would later be called the Edain.
So the Edain is like a specific group of men, not all men.
Correct.
Okay.
Just like the Eldar are supposed to be like the OG elves. He always has subclasses of
the first
his
gen.
Races. Yeah, the first gen. The Edain will be maybe the second gen then, because they were the only ones out of the entire race of men that were good to the elves and, fought along their side, and also were loyal to the Valar and fought against Morgoth in the War of Wrath.
Yeah, they chose the right side. They didn't go with the other men that helped Morgoth.
Right. Now, those men were referred to mainly as the Easterlings. They don't get a name really other than that. Oh, what's the funny name? The Swarthy Men. Yeah. But the other men from the lawless and scary side of Beleriand, I want to call it the Wild West because that's the analogy that I made, which I feel like is a pretty fitting analogy, but it's in the East. So it's the Wild, Wild East. It just doesn't have the same ring to it. Well, those guys fought for Morgoth. And then after Morgoth lost, most of those men returned back to the east and tried to carry out Morgoth's life goal. I've been working on the slogan, so tell me what you think. Make Beleriand awful again. Or make Beleriand more goth.
Yeah.
Oh, get it? Do you get it?
Nice.
So the Valar decide to make a plan because they want to protect their favorites from further misery. So they invite the rest of the elves in Beleriand to come back to Valinor. And most do come over and they make a home on an island off the coast of Valinor that we've talked a little about in the past, called the Island of Erisea or Tol Erisea. It was that fairy island that they used for a while to shuttle the elves back and forth.
I was thinking about this. How big is that island that they're able
I've
to
wondered that many
shuttle
times.
People move it back and forth?
Mm-hmm. And yet all these elves are living on it.
How far away from each shore? You know what I mean? Oh, because it took
that was my question during Rings of Power.
Imagine pushing an island that evidently can house a civilization on it.
Right. That was my question during the Rings of Power. Like, okay, Galadriel's going to jump off of this ship and she's going to literally swim back to Middle Earth. That is her plan.
Hold on, I'm going to swim to Africa in just a second. Yeah. Hold on. I got to...
I mean, I know she's like one of the... One of the Eldar. She's one of the OG elves, but seriously, I did not understand. I wanted the mileage of how far away that would be. But as far as this story is concerned, all you really need to know about Tol Eressëa is that it has those elves from Beleriand on it, and also that it has a large white tower that you can see from afar called the Tower of Avalone.
On the island?
Yes, it's like their harbor tower. Like you said before, it's like the lighthouse that's not a light. It's just like a tower.
Okay.
So with the majority of their favorites protected, the elves, they're the first favorite, the Valar decide to reward the Edain, who are their second favorites, for their loyalty. And they gave them an upgrade, and they make them smarter and stronger, and the ability to live longer. And so now they're more akin to elves than to men.
There's a sweet montage where they're like, we can build them better. And then it's like them working tirelessly in a lab. And they're like, oh, no. And they like throw papers. And like, it's still not perfect.
Okay, so you went there. I went Princess Diaries / Miss Congeniality makeover in my brain.
Another good one.
They're making their hair straighter and longer. And they're waxing them.
Plucking their unibrows.
Yes.
Paolo's tired. He took this and this.
And he made this.
I'll give you the Eldad.
So they're all beautiful now. And then with a combined effort from the Maiar, the Valar, and the Elves, the Edain are given their own island in between Middle-earth and Valinor.
Can it also be a montage where they like go into dressing rooms and they try on clothes, and then the elves are like, no, that's not a good one. And then it comes in and it's like 80s music, you know, like trying on clothes, fashion show.
Yes.
And they're like, that's it. That's the one.
Well, they have to find a new look for Numenor.
Wedding Singer, where he's trying on the the wedding dresses.
So they make Numenor already. And then they lead the Edain to Numenor by having Earendil shine brightly in the sky, and Olmo makes the waters all glittery, and come to the island, follow the glitter, follow the shiny star. Shiny, which would get me right away because I love shiny things.
I know. You would be sucked in. You'd be like,
I would be sucked in immediately. Then we find out all the names this island is called, but the most important ones to remember are Anadune and Numenor.
Right. Okay.
So the Sindar elves would later call the men that live there the Dunedain. So the terms Dunedain and Numenorian will be used interchangeably throughout the book, and so then also from me in this episode.
Okay, I have a question, and I don't know if you know the exact answer, but in the Rings of Power, they go to Numenor. Sorry if that's a spoiler for anyone, but they go to Numenor, right? And the people who are living there, are they all still the Dunedain, how they have like extra long life and they're hardier and everything, like even till that?
Yes.
Like it passes down, or was, okay.
Yeah.
Because I've always wondered if it was just like just the first ones and then the generations they had kind of lost the...
As far as I know, it might... We'll go into that a little bit more today. I'll just say that. But yes, they all still have long lives.
They're special.
They're special, yes. As far as I understand, yes, those are still the Dunedain special Numenorian people, yes.
Okay.
Because they were gifted with long lives and because they didn't have any sickness, they actually lived for a long time, like I was just saying. But Numenor didn't have any overcrowding issues because for some reason they didn't seem to have a ton of children, which you and I both have differing theories on. I'm like, well, maybe they were smart enough to figure out birth control. And you're like, maybe the Valar gave them some kind of birth control that they weren't aware of.
Yeah.
We're just going to implant
or they just had trouble having children, or I don't know.
Numenor is shaped like a star with its main harbor called Andunier on the western coast facing Valinor, or using our star visual, the top left arm. So the reason that I say remember the name Anadune is because it's kind of the root for a lot of their later names, Andune.
Figure out what Dune, or because it's Dunedain and Anadune.
I believe it's west. Dunedain is men of the west, and Dune is like
the sword
westerness.
is the flame
like,
of the west. His
what was
sword, isn't it?
Yes, but Andurin.
What is it
I
called?
I think it's Andurin. I'll put money on it. Okay, I won't, but
Where's my money? Anduril, flame of the west. Andu.
I was so close. Anduril. That was close. That root means west.
Cool.
In the very middle of the island, there is a tall mountain called the Meneltarma, or Pillar of Heaven, where there's a sort of temple built to honor Eru Iluvatar.
Okay.
That's not important for now, but it's going to come up later, so just log that in the back of your brain.
How come this is the first one to do that, I feel?
Yeah, that's a valid point. Because Fëanor's mad at the Valar, and probably then Iluvatar. I don't know why Thingol didn't. He just wanted to worship himself. He's like, this is the temple to me.
Tacky.
Yeah, that's a valid point. But the main city, like the capital of Numenor, is Armenelos. And that is where the main tower and the citadel of the king is. And as we found out at the end of the last episode, the very first king of Numenor was... Do you remember?
Oh. Does it start with an E?
Yeah. It's Elrond's brother.
Oh, yeah.
Elros.
Huh?
Elros.
So, the one who chose to be a man.
Correct. So, we're actually going to learn a bit about him today. Aren't you excited?
Okay.
So, today we're going to learn a bit more about Elros and Elrond by, they have the same heritage. So, because they have a very unique heritage, they are literally descended from every house of the Edain through their grandpa Tuor alone. They are from the house of Hador, Haleth, and Beor. It's a unique blend. And then they also have great-grandma Melian, who is a Maiar. And then they have their grandma Idril, who was one of the Noldor elves. Their grandma Nimloth, who was one of the Sindar elves. They just have a very unique blend of ancestry. And it was quite a legacy to live up to. I mean, think of some of their ancestors. They have Earendil was their dad. I mean, first of all, Tuor.
He's a flippin' star now.
Tuor, he was so cool of a man. He was made into an elf later. I mean, that's the highest honor I think anyone can get. And that's not talked about a lot. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But I think Elros did a pretty good job with his life. Although Elros did choose to be a king of men, gifted, quote unquote, with mortality, as the race of men are, he was still granted a very long life, as were his descendants.
Okay. The Dunedain, right?
Right, but his line specifically lasts longer. And I'll go into that here in a second. But since you were asking how old Elros was in the last episode, and I didn't really have a good answer, I did some research, and here's what I came up with. And it gets a little confusing because halfway through his life, there's a change in ages. Literally like the first age to second age. So that took me a minute to figure out. So in the first age, he is born in 532. When he's 6 years old, that's when the kinslaying at the havens of Sirion happened, where he was taken captive by the sons of Fëanor. He's 13 years old when the War of Wrath begins. And then, I didn't realize this, he's 55 when Maedhros and Maglor steal the Silmarils and Maedhros kills himself. So I'm assuming he's no longer living with them at this time. I mean, he's a grown man at that point.
Well, maybe in elf terms, he's still pretty young.
Maybe. And then when he turns 58, Morgoth is officially banished. The War of Wrath is officially over, and the second age begins when he's 58.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. He probably doesn't it.
Yeah. And then from there, I'm not really sure what happens to him during that time, but when he turns 90, that's when the Edain come to Numenor, and Elros is made the first king of the Dunedain.
I feel like that's a very young elf.
But he's a man.
But I still feel like he looks like an elf, Yeah.
And then he will die at the age of, do you have any guesses?
180.
Nope.
Lower or higher?
Higher. A lot higher. It's a good number. I like it. At 500, the age of 500, he dies. Like, I'm done. Like, that's a good number. I can't die at 499. So he dies in the Second Age in the year 442 after ruling Numenor for 410 years.
Dang. And does everybody else live that long, or is that just him?
That's just him. Quote, in all his line, the kings and lords of the royal house had long life, even according to the measure of the Numenorians. So his descendants will live longer than most Numenorians will.
Interesting.
Yeah. So throughout the years on Numenor, the Dunedain have prospered. They're under the protection of the Valar. They have the friendship of the elves that come and visit them from Tol Eressëa, and even, maybe from the west coast of Middle Earth, perhaps like Círdan or Gil-galad or some of their people visit.
Do you think Elrond visits?
That's what I was wondering, like maybe, but it doesn't say. They have learned the Sindarin tongue from their years living and fighting alongside the elves. But they have also learned the previously banished by Thingol. Remember when he banished the whole language of Eldar? Yeah. And this is the language that they use mainly for their lore and keeping their histories and songs.
The prettier language.
Yeah. And a civilization is doing well when they have the time to write down their histories and songs because, quote, and they made letters and scrolls and books and wrote in them many things of wisdom and wonder in the high tide of their realm.
Aww.
So, and I'm sorry, we're going to be, right? And I'm sorry, we're going to be linking back to the Rings of Power show a lot just because it's the only real visual display that we have of Numenor, that like library that they go to. This is, yeah.
So people can visit it. It's not like...
That part I'll explain probably next week.
Okay.
But this is probably when it was like established though.
Okay. The borders were still open.
Yes. And it was even tradition that the lords and kings of Numenor had Eldar names in addition to their own names. So Elros is about to get a name change. And
it's family tradition.
It's family tradition. And I'm going to say it how I think it's said. I'm going to tell you what it means. And then I'm going to tell you what my brain sees every time I see it.
Okay.
So his name is Tar Miniatur. Tar meaning king, Minya meaning first, and Tur meaning master or lord. So he's the first king, master, lord.
Cool.
But because it's spelled the way it's spelled, every single time I see it, I think it says Tar Miniatur.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that has a weird visual in my brain. Anyways, and that's why Tar Miriel from the Rings of Power show is called Tar. Tar's queen or king. Yeah. So with all this time on their hands, their upgraded minds and bodies, they've become pretty good craftsmen. And of course, some people might have used those skills towards weapons, but they didn't really have an enemy to fight. Morgoth's gone and Sauron is somewhere, the orcs are somewhere, but they're not really attacking Numenor. So they put their skills towards ships.
Oh.
Quote, above all arts, they nourished shipbuilding and seacraft, and they became mariners whose like shall never be again. And voyaging upon the wide seas was the chief feat and adventure of their hardy men in the gallant days of their youth.
So they show that a lot in the show.
Yes, I feel like they did a really good job with that. That this was like their test of manhood. It was their
culture.
Trade. That was their culture. Yeah, I really feel like they displayed that really well with the show.
Uh-huh.
So with the gift of an entire island, upgraded lives with prosperity and peace, all this the Valar gave them. But it had one catch.
Sea monsters.
No sea monsters.
No indoor plumbing.
No use of the letter T. No.
Dang it! Ah, dang it! Ah!
Quote, the lords of Valinor forbade them to sail so far westward that the coasts of Numenor could no longer be seen.
It's Moana.
Uh-huh. So in other words, no sailing too far west, as in close to Valinor.
Don't go beyond the reef.
Yes. So you can't get too close to Valinor. That's not allowed. Like, we like you and all. We gave you this island. Your kind needs to stay over there.
Mm.
And while the Dunedain didn't really understand this rule, they followed it and were pretty content sailing wherever else they could.
Yeah, they've got a whole other world to look at.
Yeah.
So they were allowed to leave.
They were allowed to leave. They were allowed to sail around. They were allowed to leave. Yeah. They just can't go further west. But they still need to be able to see their shore. Yeah. Who would want to leave? The rule was set, of course, because Monway, probably rightly so, believed that if the Numenorians saw Valinor, it probably looked pretty awesome, they would want to go there. And if they went there, they would want to stay. And if they stayed, they would probably want to be immortal too. So it's a slippery slope. So let's just not even let them see Valinor. Let's let them go near.
Gatekeeping immortality, I see.
Mm-hmm. And at this time, it was possible to sail to Valinor if they actually were allowed to. After the War of Wrath, the Valar didn't put their cloaking shields back up. So you could, on a clear day, see, quote, a city white shining on the distant shore and a great harbor and a tower.
So it's not that far away.
Some thought that this was Valinor, but it was actually the Tower of Avalone on Tol Eressëa.
Oh, the other island.
Yeah, because the elves of that island would come and visit. So like, oh, that's where you're from. Okay. But, they thought it was Valinor.
How big are these islands?
I don't know, but also it's said that, the Numenorians are very, keen-eyed. They have very good vision. Must be nice. Quote, at times the firstborn, the elves, because of course they have to keep nailing in there that they're the firstborn, would come sailing to Numenor in oarless boats as white birds flying from the sunset.
Oh.
I have so many questions. Oarless boats? Yeah. So, okay, no oars. So just sails then? Or are we having the birds pulling the ships again?
They're motors.
They have motors?
Yeah.
Or were the boats flying? Did we manufacture this technology that Earendil had? Did we fine tune the pixie dust? I have so many questions.
Dolphins.
Oh my gosh, dolphins. Yes, that'd be it. Quote, and they brought to Numenor many gifts, birds of song and fragrant flowers and herbs of great virtue. And a seedling they brought of Celeborn, the white tree that grew in the midst of Eressëa. And that was in its turn a seedling from Galathylion, the tree of Tuna, the image of Telperion that Yavanna gave to the Eldar in the Blessed Realm. So we're having a bit of a flashback here. So
great grand tree.
Yeah. So there was a bit of a trickle thing there, but you may not have remembered this, but when the two trees were made and then the elves came over to Valinor and made themselves a home on Eldamar, kind of outside where they couldn't really see the tree, Yavanna gave them a tree similar to Telperion, but maybe not quite as magical as it didn't produce its own light like Telperion. It's not name brand. Yeah, it's off brand. Then that seedling kind of gets passed along. So first it's Galathylion on Valinor, and then given to Tol Eressëa. That tree becomes Celeborn, and now a seedling from that tree is now given to Numenor.
Aww,
it's the giving tree.
Great grand tree.
Yeah. Quote, and the tree grew and blossomed in the courts of the king in Armenalos. Nimloth it was named, and flowered in the evening, and the shadows of night it filled with its fragrance.
Gorgeous.
So Nimloth does mean white blossom, which totally makes sense for the name of a tree with white flowers. But I should mention, in case you recognize the name, that Nimloth was Dior's wife, who was Elwing's mom, Earendil's grandma, Elrose's great-grandma. So maybe there's a connection there too, but could be for both.
Okay.
Now, with the ban of the Valar forbidding sailing too far west, they decided, we'll just sail east instead. That's fine. We got places to see over here.
Uh-huh.
Quote, from the darkness of the north to the heats of the south, and they came even into the inner seas, and sailed about Middle-earth, and glimpsed from their high prows the gates of morning in the east.
So they sailed all around.
They sailed all around Middle-earth, and I didn't know what the gates of morning were either. I had to look it up, but we have heard of it kind of before. And I'm just going to go on a little side tangent here for a second, just because I found it like a cool detail to visualize. When the sun was created, remember Arian is the sun. It's literally Maiar pushing, writing, somehow moving the sun. So it goes across the sky and then it somehow rests on the water for a little bit, because that's kind of what a sunset looks like. And then the servants of Ulmo guide her and the sun somehow beneath the earth. And then it makes its way around again. Well, however this gate works, this gates of morning, the designated spot where it emerges for the first time, like when you first see it in the morning. So that's why it's called the gates of morning. And it was actually like a thing you could see.
Oh,
very random, but kind of a cool idea. Yeah, I like the image. I would love to see some artwork of it. I'm not sure if any's out there, but do your thing, Reddit users.
Go on, guys. Let's do it.
So anyways, remember those poor other men on Middle-earth? The ones who now have no one to help them? No Valar, no Eldar, not even a Morgoth around?
Okay.
They're just there on Middle-earth. They're like, we used to have things to do. Now we have nothing.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
We're ready. I haven't been tortured in weeks and I don't know what to do with myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as the Dunedain are sailing around, they actually see these men, quote, and took pity on the forsaken world of Middle-earth. And the lords of Numenor set foot again. Yeah. Set foot again upon the western shores in the dark years of men. That's what it's referred to as. For most of the men of that age that sat under the shadow were now grown weak and fearful. And coming among them, the Numenorians taught them many things. Corn and wine they brought. And they instructed men in the sowing of seed and the grinding of grain and the hewing of wood and the shaping of stone and in the ordering of their life, such as it might be in the lands of swift death and little bliss.
So the Numenorians came and taught them to be self-sufficient, right?
Yes. So,
but they've been living there forever. I feel like they would already be self-sufficient.
You would think so, but somehow this race of people, they just, what's the word? When you have people that have been under tyranny for so long and then you just take away the tyrant, they just don't know what to do. They just are helpless. They are so used to being told what to do for every single thing, so used to being controlled that once you take that away, they just have no self-drive, no self-reliance, no nothing.
Sad.
So these poor men, I'm just going to call them the forgotten men. That's just what I'm going to refer to them, because that's
even
really
sadder.
Yeah, that's what I call them in my brain, just because I feel like these men, I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but I don't feel like these men are the evil men anymore. At least they have no evil to do, so they're just forgotten.
They check that off their to-do list.
Yeah, and it is nice that the Numenorians, want to share their food and their knowledge, but that last bit of the quote, such as might be in the lands of swift death and little bliss, like just gives it a feeling of like, well, I guess that's all I really can do to help you because you're just going to die soon anyway in this miserable place.
What does Buzz say to Woody? I have to look it up.
You are a strange, sad little man. You have my pity.
You have my pity. That's it.
Yes. But these forgotten men that I'm calling them, they did appreciate it. I'm sure it's the first help and, direction they've been ever given, especially since everyone is gone. Quote, then the men of Middle-earth were comforted, and here and there upon the western shores, the houseless woods drew back, and men shook off the yoke of the offspring of Morgoth and unlearned their terror of the dark. And they revered the memory of the tall sea kings, which are the Numenorians, and when they had departed, they called them gods, hoping for their return. For at that time, the Numenorians dwelt never long in Middle-earth, nor made there as yet any habitation of their own.
They're like sad little people.
So sad. Yes, they are helping. And this aid they've given them, it was brought on by pity, but not really much more. It's just, we're going to give you food and then leave. But it's also like, that's the crumbs. That's the merest effort they can do,
I feel like it's sad because they're like, "Yay, you guys are gonna stay, right? You gonna stay, or oh no, you gonna
Yeah.
go back to your super fancy island that like
Mm-hmm.
everything is
And then,
cool and nothing goes wrong and everybody lives a long time. No, that's cool. That's fine. That's
yeah,
fine. Like,
must be nice.
yeah,
Think of them as gods, and they build things. I'm sure like they're maybe like are building like shrines, like, please come back, we built you this pretty statue, what do you think? Like,
yeah. Okay, so in the show, the people like that boy that I did not like.
oh yeah.
Which he had such a normal name, which I did not enjoy. Was it like Theo or something? And I'm like, come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Sorry to all the Theos out there. Not a fan of that name.
What was it actually?
But
Theodore? Was his name Theodore? Was it really?
they seemed so not
Destitute.
poor. Yeah, like they seemed like they didn't have any education. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're very backwoodsy, like
Yeah.
kind of situation. Where I could see them being like, "Oh, you're so beautiful, and you have clean hair," and I'm
Yeah.
like,
You have time to
"Oh,
write your history down? I barely have time to eat or to farm. And
yeah." I don't know. It's just so sad that like these poor
mm-hmm.
people get left behind. Like,
Mm-hmm. That's why I'm calling them in my head the forgotten men. They just are forgotten about. Nobody
oh,
cares about them.
I wonder why they go to Morgoth's side, huh?
Yeah. 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 So the Numenorians would sail east to Middle Earth time and time again. But in the end, their real desire, what they really, really wanted, was to sail west, which they weren't allowed to do.
They always want what you can't have, right?
Uh-huh. Quote, now this yearning grew ever greater with the years, and the Numenorians began to hunger for the undying city that they saw from afar, and the desire of everlasting life, to escape from death and the ending of delight, grew strong upon them, and ever as their power and glory grew greater, their unquiet increased.
Why can't they just be satisfied with what they have? They have it so much better than everyone else.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's a tales all the time. You tell someone they can't have something, don't go there. Eventually, that's all they're going to want. You know, Pandora's box, don't open the box. Adam and Eve, tree of knowledge, don't eat that tree. You know, don't eat the fruit off that tree. Simba,
Please
don't go to
eat
that shadowy place. Yeah, please don't eat the tree either. Simba, don't go to the shadowy place. Ariel, don't go to the surface, you know.
Moana, don't sail in the ocean.
Yeah, it's one of those things. And
They
even
think
though
they know better.
Uh-huh. And this is the ultimate thing. The Valar could give the Dunedain long life, but the ultimate gift, quote unquote, of mortality is from their creator, Iluvatar. And the Valar can't take that gift away. It's his gift. They can't take it away. Unless your name is Tor. But other than him, you know, that's the only one.
Yeah. Except for that guy.
Except for that guy.
Don't look at him. Nope. No.
Quote, thus it was that a shadow fell upon them, in which maybe the will of Morgoth was at work that still moved in the world, and the Numenorians began to murmur, at first in their hearts, and then in open words, against the doom of men, their mortality, and most of all, against the ban, which forbade them to sail into the west.
They just couldn't be happy with what they had. They literally had longer life than any other than the elves that stayed in Middle Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Longer life than that.
Quote, and they said among themselves, why do the lords of the west sit there in peace unending, while we must die and go we know not whither, leaving our home and all that we have made? And the Eldar die not, even those that rebelled against the lords. And since we have mastered all seas, and no water is so wild or so wide that our ships cannot overcome it, why should we not go to Avalone and greet there our friends?
Okay, so I'm gonna go the other side and say I get why they feel like it's not fair.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's understandable. It's not fair.
I did find it interesting that the island is actually somewhat closer to Valinor than to Middle Earth. They could have put that island freaking anywhere.
I know.
But no, you just had to put it with just in reach of Valinor and just in sight of Tol Eressëa. Like, you just had to leave it just within so
Teasing
close.
them.
Yes.
I don't know.
I do find
After
it interesting.
being like picked on for so long, of like, oh, you're not good enough, and didn't get the special gifts of, immortality and being an elf and, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. But I do find it interesting that after years of visiting the forgotten men of Middle-earth, this is when they start complaining. These Dunedain, who have an awesome home, have awesome and long lives, have awesome bodies and brains. It's just not enough. Like, but the Eldar knows what happens to them after they die, and we don't. But the Eldar get to live forever, while we only get to live to be like, I don't know, like 500. It isn't fair, Daddy. It isn't fair.
Daddy, it's not fair.
But I want an Oompa Loompa now.
You would think that they would see how bad the other people have it and be like, we're fine.
That is like, if they didn't see that, and that they only saw the Valar and the elves, that'd be like, yeah, we got gypped. But then, like, you see those people like, oh no, I'm good. If it's between what I have and that, I'm good.
Yeah, I could see it going both ways of like, oh, I'm fine here, like seeing the other people how they live, that's great. But then they could also be like, well, are we the same way to them? Like, are we looked down upon like the other people?
Maybe a little, but who cares? You still have a good life.
I know. I'd be fine living on Numenor.
Right? Oh, but that's not good enough for them, because what if we just saw our friends over on Tol Eressëa? Like, if we just saw the Eldar, why can't we just sail over there? It's just not fair. And then some are like, don't stop there. Basically, they said.
Okay.
Why should we not go even to Aemon, which is Valinor, and taste there, were it but for a day, the bliss of the powers? Have we not become mighty among the people of Arda?
Their powers get into their heads.
So, like, really? Now you want to go to Valinor too? Like, do you want to fly up into the stars with Earendil too? Like, is anything good enough for you, buddy?
Be a bird?
Yeah. Well, soon enough, the elves that have been visiting Numenor start hearing all these complaints, and they tell the Valar. And Monwë is sad by this news.
He's like, oh, I thought you guys would like my gift.
Yeah. Quote, seeing a cloud gather on the noontide of Numenor.
Uh-oh.
Trouble's coming.
Uh-oh.
So Monwë sends messengers to the king and basically anyone else who would listen on Numenor. And he basically tells them, don't come to Valinor. It would be a waste of your time. Quote, for it is not the land of Monwë that makes its people deathless, but the deathless that dwell therein have hallowed the land. And there you would but wither and grow weary the sooner, as moths in a light too strong and steadfast.
So he's trying to convince them, like, you won't like it over here.
Yeah. But, I mean, what purpose are they wanting to go over there to? It's not like they're going to be immortal the moment they step on the land. That's not how it works. The people who live there are immortal. But I do find this idea that a mortal who would visit Valinor would wither and grow weary the sooner, as if, like, time just, like, speeds up and you just aged incredibly fast. Like, what if that happened to Earendil when he first stepped foot on Valinor?
Like Indiana Jones movie or something?
Yes. Yes. But then the king of Numenor, this I'm assuming isn't Elros, because I don't think Elros would do this. He tries pulling a fast one on Monwë's messenger, stating, quote, and does not Earendil, my forefather, live? Or is he not in the land of Valinor? Like, I heard Earendil's there, and he's a man. How does that work?
But he's not living in Valinor. He's like
they don't know that. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I actually love this response because it literally starts with the words, you know. Like, come on, don't ask me this stupid question you already know the answer to. Quote, you know that he has a fate apart and was adjudged to the firstborn, the elves, who die not. Yet this also is his doom, that he can never return again to mortal lands.
I didn't know that part. He's like Davy Jones, where he can't step on land again.
Yeah, he's up in the sky forever now. Or, yeah, he can never return again.
High, up in the sky.
Yeah.
He's the North Star?
Mm-hmm.
The yeah, slaying dragons, my wife is a bird. I can never step on land.
I want you to keep going.
I forgot about my kids, and they're down there. But then one of them wanted to be a man, and the other wanted to be an elf. But now they're separated, and one's on Middle Earth, and one is on Numenor, and he's the king of Numenor. That's pretty cool, I guess. I never got to be king, but now I'm the North Star, flying in my magical boat. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Bravo, bravo.
My wife is a bird.
It gets really weird sometimes.
Don't ask me how that happened. I don't actually know.
So they're like, dude, he is not even on Valinor. He isn't even, I guess he's still immortal because, you know, he was a special case. And he's up in the sky, and he doesn't even get to, like, come to Middle Earth or Valinor or anywhere. He's up in the sky forever now. And then the messengers really, really try hard to sell it here when they say, quote, whereas you and your people are not of the firstborn, the elves, but are mortal men as Iluvatar made you. Yet it seems that you desired now to have the good of both kindreds, to sail to Valinor when you will, and to return when you please to your homes. That cannot be. Nor can the Valar take away the gifts of Iluvatar. We've been over this. The Eldar, you say, are unpunished, and even those who rebelled do not die. Yet that is to them neither reward nor punishment, but the fulfillment of their being. Like, but those guys that rebelled they get to live still long. Like, well, that's not the point. That's not even
Honey,
like
some of them jumped off a cliff, okay?
Yeah.
They jumped off a cliff into a fiery hole, and the other one is mentally insane and walking around and like not having a good time. Do you want that?
Yeah.
Is that what you want? Will that make you happy?
But man, they're just really trying to nail the point. The Valar cannot take away men's mortality. It was a gift from Iluvatar, and he does not take refunds. Maybe exchanges if you have the receipt and within 30 days and it's not washed.
Yeah. And you have a shiny rock.
Yeah. But they just emphasize over and over again that mortality is supposed to be a gift. And in the end, they're like, which of us therefore should envy the others? You know, like maybe I should, you know, envy you. You seem like you have a pretty good life. It'd be nice to not have to live forever, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, would you rather live forever or have a mortal life? Like, I'm actually kind of torn on this. I look at someone like Maedhros and I'm like, I'm sure he wanted to die long before he actually did.
True. Or when you fall in love with a mortal and then you have to watch them grow old and all that stuff.
Yeah.
The tale as old as time.
Yep. But the Numenorians cannot let it go. Basically, easy for you to say, you know where you go after you're going to die. You get to stay on this earth. That's so awesome. You get to live forever. It's not fair. And then the messengers are like, okay, you know, don't blame us. We're just the messengers. Quote, indeed, the mind of Iluvatar concerning you is not known to the Valar, and he has not revealed all things that are to come. But this we hold to be true. The doom of men, that they should depart, like as in die, was at first a gift of Iluvatar. It became a grief to them only because, coming under the shadow of Morgoth, it seemed to them that they were surrounded by a great darkness, of which they were afraid, and some grew willful and proud and would not yield until life was reft from them.
So they didn't know better, and they're like, this is great, and they're like, wait, somebody else has something cooler than me. Like the age-old toddler kid dilemma of like, I have a really cool toy, and then the new kid brings a toy to the park, and then they're like, wait a minute, what? I want that toy.
Grass is always greener, right? But on the other hand, I'm like trying to piece out this quote here. Like, are they saying that, because when the elves were made, Morgoth wasn't a problem.
So are they blaming
the
the
men
men
were
for
made-
like Morgoth being a problem?
No, but Morgoth was already a problem when men were made. So are they saying that he's like, these elves are going to have to live a lifetime of Morgoth's crap. So if you had immortality, you would have to put up with Morgoth forever. But see, I made you mortal, so you only have to deal with him for like a little bit
die
instead.
a horrible
You know,
death.
isn't that so nice of me?
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Be grateful.
So that's how I read it. And then this is the last quote, and I'm not sure. I need your help piecing it out. Quote, "We who bear the ever-mounting burden of the years do not clearly understand this." Which, okay, very valid. "But if that grief, the grief of not being able to live forever, has returned to trouble you, as you say, then we fear that the shadow arises once more and grows again in your hearts." Like,
Oh.
evil is happening here. Something's stirring that, is making you guys so envious. "Therefore, though you be the Dunedain, fairest of men, who escaped from the shadow of old and fought valiantly against it, we say to you, beware. The will of Eru, Iluvatar, may not be gainsaid or denied. And the Valar bid you earnestly," okay, this is the part I had trouble with. "So the Valar bid you earnestly not to withhold the trust to which you are called.
Oh. Okay, keep going.
Lest soon it become again a bond by which you are constrained."
Huh.
So we bid you earnestly not to withhold the trust to which you are called. Like, we trusted you.
To keep everything safe and be good people
Yeah.
and fight for the good guys.
And then, lest it become again a bond by which you are constrained. Why would it be constraining to have that? I don't understand that part. And then it says, "Hope rather that in the end, even the least of your desires shall have fruit."
We just want you to be happy.
Yeah. And then it says, "The love of Arda was set in your hearts by Iluvatar, and he does not plant to no purpose. Nonetheless, many ages of men unborn may pass ere that purpose is made known, and to you it will be revealed, and not to the Valar."
Maybe it's the elves.
Like, it must be
and
hard
men
to
coming
live
together. That's their to be united is their ultimate goal.
This part, though, like, "The love of Arda was set in your hearts by Iluvatar, and he does not plant to no purpose." He did give you mortality, and it would be nice if, when you died, you weren't sad about that, because you are sad to leave this earth, because he did give you that love of the earth, but it wasn't for a purpose that we know.
And also, you have a purpose.
Eventually, it's going to be revealed to you and not to us. Yeah, you have a purpose. We just don't know what that is.
It's that, I think that meant, like, he didn't just throw you guys on Middle Earth of, like, whatever. Like, you're here for a reason.
Yeah.
But we feel like your temperaments and your mental capacity right now is not the right time to tell you your true purpose.
This isn't you. This isn't you. This is not who you
are. A lot of
are.
Moana in this episode.
A lot of Moana. I don't know what that's about. But I love the beware. They're like, "You better watch yourself, Numenor. Like, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Better stem this down, because things are going to be bad if you keep this bad behavior up."
It's like a toddler, I told you.
Yeah, it's always with the toddlers. Well, that's actually where I'm going to leave you today on that confounding note.
Okay.
We're stirring things up. The pot's starting to boil.
So, if we take anything from this episode, everyone, is be grateful for what you have, because it could be a lot worse. But also,
Moana is the best.
Something about gifts. Like, don't
kick a gift horse in the mouth or whatever.
No, it's not that one. Basically, if someone gives you something really nice,
you get what you get, and you don't throw a fit.
That's right. That's what Tolkien's saying in beautiful words is, hey, quit throwing a fit.
Yes.
I gave you something nice.
Yeah.
I think that's every A season in a parent's life is that lesson they have to teach their children of you can't get everything you want in life, and no matter how much you whine about it,
you can't always get what you want.
know how much you whine about it and how much you like, it's unfair. It's like, well, that's just how life goes, bud. You know, it's just how it goes.
Yep.
Well, anyway, thank you for teaching me today. And again, we
you're welcome.
Apologize if there's a lot of noise in the backgrounds of children.
Or coloring
Lizzie
or capping
did
of
so
markers or dropping of markers. They did really good. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Sisters of the Shire Podcast. Become a patron and go to our Patreon at patreon.com/Sisters of the Shire Podcast. You could join our dwarf friend of the Shire, Dan, or our elf friend of the Shire, Chrishane. Thank you for your contributions. Woohoo! Also, we got a new rating on Spotify, but you guys, I don't want to say my self-esteem is dependent on this, but I know that the more ratings you get, the more it could go down, and it's going down a little, you guys, and it's making me a little sad. So if the people that do like us, could you rate us, please, and make it go back up, please?
Oh no!
Please. It went from like 4.9 to 4.7. It's not like
did this,
huge, but I know. Okay, for realsies though, if you were the one that rated it whatever that made it down, would you like nicely send us a message and just say like, hey, what are we doing wrong? What could we work on? Are we bantering too much? Are we not bantering enough? Very nicely.
You have
just send us a message and just, we'd love to improve.
Nicely. Please be nice. We have feelings. We're humans.
Also, we got a new country, 2 new countries.
Wakanda.
Do you want to try guessing? They're very random. Wakanda. Yes. No. One is Saudi Arabia. And the other is Romania.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yes. Okay, I'm starting to keep a count. So we have 54 countries now. Last I checked, there was like 51. I'm missing a new one in there. I'm sorry if I missed you in there.
It's like a country that people already overlook. Like it's like a tiny country. Like they're like, oh, it's okay.
I know, and I'm so sorry.
Overlook us anyway.
I'm sorry. But I will be better at looking at the different country names.
Well, thank you for listening, whoever out there in the world is listening.
Yes, I love that we have so many different countries and listeners from all over. And also,
you can comment on our Instagrams, and if you have something, if you send us a direct message, maybe you'll even get on our stories or something. We'll shout you out. But,
yes. We're all about the shout outs.
Follow us on Instagram and become a Patreon and rate us and review us and tell all your friends, because we're awesome and nice and we're family friendly. So you can suggest us to pretty much anybody.
Yeah.
And did I say this already? Thank you for teaching me today.
You did, but you're welcome. Until next week, I've been Ashley.
And I'm Abby. And this has been the Sisters of the Shire podcast.
Bye.
Goodbye, Lizzie.